The massive warship appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system without warning. One moment, the space beyond Pluto was empty and quiet. The next moment, a ship the size of a small moon hung there like a dark metal mountain. Its name, written in a language no human had ever seen before, was the Iron Crown of Seven Suns. It was the flagship of the HFY Dominion, and it had come to deliver a message. Behind the flagship, thousands of smaller warships emerged from the darkness. 12,000 of them, to be exact. Each one bristled with weapons powerful enough to crack a planet's crust. They formed a wall of steel and fire that stretched across space, and they all pointed toward the small blue world in the distance. On the bridge of the Iron Crown, Grand Admiral Jaltek Vor stood tall and proud. He was 7 feet of muscle and scales, a reptilian warrior whose body bore the scars of 100 conquests. His golden eyes stared at the view screen showing Earth, and his mouth curled into what passed for a smile among his people. It showed many sharp teeth. "Send the message," he ordered in his deep, rumbling voice. His communications officer obeyed at once. The message went out on every frequency that the primitive humans could receive. It was short, clear, and final. "People of Earth, you have 3 of your standard days to lay down your weapons, dissolve your governments, and accept the rule of the HFY Dominion. If you refuse, your planet will be wiped clean of all life. This is your only chance to survive. Do not waste it." Vor leaned back in his command chair and waited. He had done this many times before. In his long career, he had conquered 847 civilizations across 3 galactic arms. He knew exactly what would happen next. First would come panic, then desperate pleas for more time, then perhaps some foolish counterattack that his shields would brush aside like dust, finally surrender. It was always the same, but this time, something different happened. The reply came back within minutes, not days. It was calm, short, and polite. It said only this: "Ambassador on the way. Please wait." Vor blinked his golden eyes. His council of warlords exchanged confused looks. An ambassador? Already? The humans had not begged for time. They had not launched any attacks. They had not even sent their planetary defense fleet to pretend they could fight. "Strange creatures," Vor muttered. "Very well. Let the ambassador come. I will enjoy crushing their hopes in person." Down on Earth, the response to the alien ultimatum was very different from what Vor imagined. There was no panic in the streets. There were no riots or mass prayers. The general public did not even know about the aliens yet. The governments of the world had agreed long ago to keep such things secret until the right moment. In a sealed underground chamber beneath the Swiss Alps, the United Nations Emergency Council had gathered. This was not the public UN that people saw on television. This was the hidden one, the real one, the group that had been preparing for exactly this day for nearly 40 years. The Secretary General, a sharp-eyed woman named Dr. Amara Okonkwo, stood at the head of a long metal table. Around her sat the leaders of every major nation and the heads of Earth's secret defense programs. The mood in the room was serious, but not afraid. "The HFY have arrived, Doctor," Okonkwo said. "Right on schedule. Their fleet is exactly as our projections predicted. 12,000 warships, 1 flagship, standard conquest formation." A general from Russia nodded. "Project Lazarus is ready. All systems are green." A scientist from Japan added, "The signal package has been prepared and tested thousands of times. It will work." Dr. Okonkwo picked up a red folder from the table. She opened it slowly. Inside was a single page with a photograph and a name. She looked around the room. "Then we only need one thing now. We need the ambassador." Everyone in the room nodded. They all knew who it would be. The name had been chosen years ago. He had trained for this his whole adult life, even when he was young and did not know what his training was truly for. "Marcus Chen," Dr. Okonkwo said. "Bring him in." Far from that underground room, in the quiet hills of Montana, a man in his late 50s was checking on his beehives. He wore old jeans, a faded blue shirt, and a wide-brimmed hat. His hair was gray at the temples. His hands moved gently among the bees as he lifted a frame and studied the honeycomb. The bees did not sting him. They never did. Marcus Chen looked like any retired country gentleman. He had a small house, a garden, and a dog named Biscuit. Neighbors thought he was a former teacher, or perhaps an office worker. He kept to himself. He read books on the porch in the evenings. He was polite, but quiet. What his neighbors did not know was that Marcus had once been the youngest xenolinguist in the American Defense Program. They did not know that he had studied alien languages for 30 years. They did not know that he had memorized every scrap of Kreshvar communication Earth had ever captured. They did not know that he had spent a full decade learning how to think like them, speak like them, and, most importantly, how to fool them. They also did not know that his real job title, written on a document sealed in a vault in Washington, was Primary Delivery Agent, Project Lazarus. A black helicopter appeared in the distance, flying low over the Montana hills. Marcus straightened up. He looked at the sky and then at his bees. He sighed softly. "Well, girls," he said to the hive. "Looks like it's time." He walked back to his house at an easy pace. He did not seem worried or excited. When the helicopter landed in his front yard, he was already packed. He carried only one small brown briefcase and a cup of coffee. He fed Biscuit and asked his neighbor to watch the dog. Then he boarded the helicopter. 6 hours later, Marcus was on a shuttle, climbing through Earth's atmosphere. He was alone in the passenger cabin. Through the window, he watched his home planet grow smaller. The blue of the oceans, the white swirl of clouds, the green patches of land where billions of lives continued, unaware of the fleet waiting beyond the moon. Marcus took a sip of his coffee. He looked at his watch, an old analog timepiece that had belonged to his grandfather. He smiled a small, private smile. 3 days, he said softly to himself. How generous of them. Then he opened his briefcase and began his final preparations. The human shuttle was tiny compared to the Iron Crown of 7 suns. It looked like a small bird flying toward a mountain. As the shuttle approached the massive Kreshvar flagship, the warship's docking bay opened like a giant mouth ready to swallow it whole. Marcus Chen sat calmly in his seat. He finished the last of his coffee and placed the empty cup neatly beside him. He checked his tie in the small mirror. He adjusted his glasses. He looked, for all the world, like a man arriving at a boring business meeting. The shuttle landed softly inside the massive docking bay. The doors hissed open. Cold, alien air rushed in, smelling of metal and strange chemicals. Marcus picked up his brown briefcase and stepped out onto the floor of the enemy flagship. A group of Kreshvar warriors waited for him. Each one stood 7 feet tall. Their scales were dark green and black, and their golden eyes stared down at the small human with open contempt. They wore heavy armor covered in the marks of past battles. Any one of them could have broken Marcus in half with one hand. Marcus smiled politely at them. "Good afternoon," he said in perfect Kreshvar. His voice was calm and friendly. "My name is Marcus Chen. I am the ambassador from Earth. Thank you for receiving me." The warriors looked at each other in surprise. None of them had expected the human to speak their language. They had expected a frightened, babbling creature. Instead, they got a polite gentleman with a briefcase, who was speaking to them as if they had met at a dinner party. "Follow us," the lead warrior growled. "Grand Admiral Vore is waiting." They walked through the endless corridors of the flagship. Marcus walked at a steady pace, neither rushing nor dragging his feet. He looked around with quiet interest, like a tourist in a museum. The hallways were designed to frighten visitors. They were lined with trophies of past conquests. Preserved bodies of alien leaders hung in glass cases. Banners of defeated civilizations hung from the ceiling. The walls showed carved images of burning cities and kneeling kings. Marcus studied each trophy as he passed. He paused once, in front of a case holding the skull of a 6-armed alien creature. "Commander Tesh of the Veshin Collective," he said quietly, mostly to himself. "I remember reading about her. She fought well." The warriors stared at him. How did this human know that name? They finally reached the war chamber. It was a huge round room with a high ceiling. The walls glowed with soft red light. In the center of the room sat a massive throne of black metal and bone. On the throne sat Grand Admiral Zhaltek Vore. Around him stood 12 of his top warlords, all of them huge and armored. Marcus walked to the center of the room, set his briefcase down gently on the floor, and clasped his hands in front of him. He looked up at the Admiral with the same polite smile. Grand Admiral Vor, it is an honor to meet the conqueror of the Marabi Twin Worlds. Vor's golden eyes narrowed. You know of my campaigns. I have read about them in great detail, Marcus said. Your tactics at the Battle of Marabi Prime were quite clever. The way you used the gas giant's gravity to hide your fleet was very impressive. The Admiral leaned forward. He had not expected a primitive human to discuss military history with him. He felt a strange twist of something in his chest. It was not fear. It was too small for that. But it was something. A servant brought forward a tray with a ceremonial cup of Kreshvar spirits. The drink was meant to test visitors. It was strong enough to kill most alien species. Marcus accepted the cup without hesitation. He took a small sip, nodded thoughtfully, and said, Hints of copper and some kind of root. Quite good. Thank you. The warlords exchanged glances. The drink had not affected him at all. Vor tapped his clawed fingers on the arm of his throne. He was growing impatient. He had expected this meeting to be quick and simple. He would crush the human spirit. The human would beg, and then he would send the surrender terms back to Earth. But this was not going as planned. Enough small talk, Ambassador, Vor said. His voice was sharper now. You have come to give me Earth's answer. What is it? Will your people surrender, or will they die? Marcus took another slow sip of his drink. He looked at the cup for a moment. Then he set it down carefully on a small table beside him. He straightened his tie. He looked directly into the Admiral's golden eyes. Admiral, Marcus said, his voice still calm and polite, you have given us 3 days to yield. Yes, Vor said. 3 days. And not 1 second more. Marcus smiled. It was a small smile, warm and gentle, like a grandfather about to tell a joke. With all due respect, Admiral, Marcus said, you won't last 3 seconds. The chamber went silent. For a long moment, no one moved. Then the warlords began to laugh. It started as low chuckles and grew into loud, barking laughter that echoed off the walls. Vor himself threw back his head and roared with amusement. The sound was like a lion laughing at a mouse. 3 seconds, Vor shouted. The human says 3 seconds. Did you hear that? 12,000 warships cannot last 3 seconds against a planet with no fleet, no shields, and no hope. The warlords laughed harder. Marcus waited patiently. He did not seem upset. He did not seem afraid. He simply stood there with his hands clasped and waited for the laughter to die down. When it finally did, Vor leaned forward on his throne. His face was still twisted in amusement, but his eyes were cold. Little human, he said, I will enjoy watching your planet burn. I will keep you alive just long enough to see it, and then I will feed you to my honor guard, 1 piece at a time. Marcus checked his watch. It was a simple, quiet gesture. He looked at the old analog timepiece on his wrist for just a moment. I wouldn't worry about my planet, Admiral, he said quietly. I'd worry about yours. A red light began to blink on the command console behind the throne. Then another. Then 10. Then 100. The bridge officers shouted in alarm. Alarms began to wail throughout the ship. Screens that had shown the Kreshvar fleet in perfect formation now showed ships going dark one by one. A junior officer ran to the Admiral. His scales had turned pale with fear. Grand Admiral, something is happening to our fleet. The ships, they are turning off. Vor's face, which had been so full of confidence and cruel joy, finally cracked. For the first time in many years, Grand Admiral Zhaltek Vor, conqueror of 847 civilizations, felt something he had almost forgotten. He felt fear, and across from him, the small human ambassador stood quietly, hands clasped, still smiling. The war chamber of the Iron Crown of 7 Suns was no longer quiet. Alarms screamed from every console. Red lights flashed on every wall. Officers ran back and forth, shouting into their communicators and receiving nothing but static in return. The mighty flagship of the Kreshvar Dominion was becoming deaf and blind with each passing second. Grand Admiral Vor stood up from his throne. His massive body seemed to shake with rage and confusion. He turned to his main display screen, which showed a map of his fleet. One by one, the small lights that represented his warships were going dark. 12,000 ships, and they were all turning off like someone was flipping a switch. What is happening? Vor roared. Report! Someone give me a report, a young officer stammered. Grand Admiral, our ships are. They are shutting themselves down. The shields are gone. The weapons are offline. The engines are dead. Even the life support is failing on some of the vessels. Vor turned slowly to face Marcus Chen. The small human still stood calmly in the center of the chamber. His hands were still clasped in front of him. His brown briefcase sat quietly at his feet. He had not moved a single step during the chaos. You, Vor snarled. What have you done? Marcus tilted his head slightly. Would you like me to explain, Admiral? I think you deserve to know. It is a rather long story, but I believe you have time. You are not going anywhere. Vor's hand went to the ceremonial blade at his belt. The warlords around him did the same. 12 huge warriors pulled their weapons, but when they tried to activate the energy blades, nothing happened. The weapons stayed cold and dead in their hands. Marcus nodded gently. Yes. Those as well. I apologize. It was necessary. The Admiral's face twisted with fury. But he was a commander, and commanders must think before they act. He forced himself to stay still. He needed to understand what was happening. Explain, Vor said through his teeth. Now, Marcus took a deep breath. He looked around the room at all the massive warriors whose weapons had just become useless metal. He spoke in a calm, clear voice, like a teacher giving a history lesson. It began in 1987, Marcus said. That is 39 Earth years ago. A Kreshvar scout ship crashed in the Gobi Desert. The pilot died on impact. The ship was damaged but mostly intact. Our scientists found it first. Vor's eyes widened slightly. The Dominion had always believed that scout ship had been destroyed by an internal failure, leaving no trace. Earth's governments made a very hard choice that day, Marcus continued. We could have announced the discovery to the world. We could have become famous. Instead, our leaders agreed on something else. They agreed to stay silent. They agreed to study the ship in secret, and they agreed to prepare. Prepare for what? Vor growled. For you, Marcus said simply. For this exact moment. He began to walk slowly around the chamber as he spoke. The warlords watched him but did not attack. Their weapons were useless, and they did not understand what was happening. For almost 40 years, humanity studied that ship, Marcus said. We took it apart piece by piece. We mapped every circuit. We decoded every system. We learned your communication protocols. We learned your command languages. We learned your security codes. And most importantly, Admiral, we learned something very important about you. He stopped walking and looked at Vor. We learned that your people are proud. Very proud. You are so proud that you have not really changed your technology in 300 years? Why would you? You have crushed 847 civilizations. None of them could fight you. So why update your systems? Why fix what is not broken? Vor said nothing. The truth of it was written on his face. The same basic computer systems run every ship in your fleet, Marcus said. The same core software, the same security keys, the same communication protocols. You are all connected, all the time, through your command network. It makes your fleet very efficient. It also makes your fleet very easy to turn off, if you have the right key. Marcus walked back to his briefcase. He knelt down and opened it. Inside was not paperwork or weapons. Inside was a small, smooth device that glowed with soft blue light. It hummed quietly. This is the key, Marcus said. My team and I call it the Lazarus signal. It has been broadcasting from the moment I stepped onto your ship. It used your own communication relays to spread to every vessel in your fleet. It sent a simple message to each of your ships. The message was a command code written in your own military language. The command code was, in simple terms, to turn everything off. Vor stared at the glowing device. His mind tried to understand what he was seeing. A whole fleet, the largest fleet ever assembled by the Dominion, defeated by a small box in a briefcase. Impossible, Vor whispered. Our security is unbreakable. Your security was designed to stop enemies with your level of technology, Marcus said. Or lower. You never imagined that a species you considered primitive might have been studying you in secret for 40 years. You never imagined that while you were conquering distant worlds, we were quietly learning every secret of yours. You did not look at Earth, Admiral. Not really. You saw a small blue planet with no starships and decided we were nothing. Marcus stood up and faced Vor. That was your first mistake. Your second mistake was giving us 3 days to yield. We only needed 3 seconds. Vor's massive body trembled with anger. He could not accept this. He would not accept this. He was the conqueror of Marabi Prime. He was the butcher of the Veshan worlds. He was Grand Admiral Zaltek Vor, and no small human would defeat him with a briefcase. With a terrible roar, he pulled the ceremonial blade from his belt and charged at Marcus. The blade was dead and cold, but it was still sharp enough to kill. His claws were sharp too. His body was massive. He could tear the human apart with his bare hands. Marcus did not move. He did not run. He did not raise his hands to defend himself. He simply stood there. Vor crossed half the distance. Then he stopped. Something was wrong with his armor. The servo motors that helped move his heavy battlesuit had stopped working. The suit that had made him strong and fast was now just very heavy metal, clamped around his body. He could barely lift his arm. The other warlords had the same problem. Their armor was dead. Without the power assist systems, they were just large reptiles wearing very heavy suits. They stumbled and struggled to move. Yes, Marcus said quietly. I thought you might try that. Your armor is part of the system too. I had the signal shut that down about 30 seconds ago. Vor fell to one knee. The weight of his armor pressed him down. He was still strong, but he could not fight like this. He looked up at Marcus, with hatred burning in his golden eyes. Kill me then, Vor snarled. Finish it. Marcus tilted his head. He looked almost sad. Admiral, he said gently. I am not here to kill you. I am a diplomat. I came here to talk. He adjusted his tie and straightened his jacket. Now then, Marcus said. Shall we discuss the terms of your surrender? While Grand Admiral Vor knelt on the floor of his own war chamber, something new was happening outside the Iron Crown of Seven Suns. Bright flashes of light appeared throughout the solar system. One after another, hidden jump gates opened. From each gate came a ship. They were not huge, like the Kreshvar vessels. They were smaller, sleeker, and built with different shapes and colors. These were the ships of Earth's real fleet. For 40 years, while the Kreshvar ship had been studied in secret, humanity had built its own space navy. Not a huge one, not one that could fight the Dominion in open battle, but a smart one, a careful one. A fleet designed for exactly this moment. The ships had been hidden across the solar system, some of them in the asteroid belt, some on the dark side of the moon, some inside hollowed-out comets. They had waited. Now they moved. Hundreds of human ships approached the frozen Kreshvar armada. Boarding parties in powered suits launched toward the dead enemy vessels. Because the Kreshvar ships had no working weapons, shields, or doors that would not open to human override codes, the boarding parties met almost no real resistance. Kreshvar warriors who tried to fight found their armor dead and their weapons cold. Most were captured alive. Some surrendered without a fight. A few foolish ones tried to charge the humans with bare claws and were quickly stopped by stun weapons. Within 2 hours, the greatest fleet in the Kreshvar Dominion was under human control. Back in the war chamber, Marcus Chen sat in a simple chair that had been brought for him. Vor was still on one knee, unable to stand properly in his dead armor. The warlords had been gathered together in one corner of the room. Human soldiers in light armor now guarded the doors. They held weapons that worked perfectly, because they were human weapons, not Kreshvar ones. I have a question for you, Admiral, Marcus said. Why do you think we did not simply destroy your fleet? Vor looked up. His golden eyes were dull with defeat, but sharp with hate. Because you are weak, he said. You do not have the stomach for it. Marcus shook his head slowly. No, Admiral. We have the stomach for it. Trust me. Human history is not a gentle story. We have done terrible things to each other for thousands of years. If we had wanted to destroy your fleet, we could have. The Lazarus signal has a second setting. It can cause every reactor in every ship to fail at once. 12,000 of your warships would have become 12,000 small suns. Your people would have been ash before they knew they were in danger. Vor's eyes widened. He believed him. He could see the truth in the human's calm face. Then why? Vor asked. Why spare us? Marcus leaned forward slightly. Because we need the galaxy to see this moment, he said. We need every species you have conquered, every species you have not yet reached, every species that trembles at the mention of the Kreshvar Dominion, to see what happened here today. We need them to see your fleet fall. We need them to see you kneel. And we need them to see a human smile while it happens. He paused. Fear is a language your kind taught the galaxy, Admiral. Today, we translated it. And now we are going to speak it back to you, but with different words. Vor's head dropped. He understood. This was not just a defeat. This was a message. A message to every world under Dominion rule. A message that said the mighty could fall. A message that said hope was possible. Your Dominion holds 847 species as slaves, Marcus continued. We know most of them by name now. We have been talking to some of them. In secret, of course. 3 of them have already agreed to rise up against your governors the moment this fleet falls. By the end of this week, dozens more will join them. By the end of the month, the Dominion will have no more slave worlds. You cannot hold the galaxy together, Vor said bitterly. You are one small species. You do not have the ships or the numbers to rule what you have taken from us. Marcus smiled. It was the first time during the whole meeting that he looked a little tired. Admiral, he said softly, we do not want to rule the galaxy. That is the part you still do not understand. We never wanted to rule anyone. We simply wanted to be left alone. But you came here and threatened our home, so we had to act. And now that we have acted, we have no intention of becoming the next Dominion. He stood up and walked to a window. He could see the captured ships floating silent in space. Human shuttles moved between them like busy bees. The liberated species will govern themselves, Marcus said. They will form their own council. Earth will help them where we can. And we will sit on the council as one voice among many. We will not lead them. We will not command them. We will trade with them, share knowledge with them, and defend them if anyone tries to conquer them again. But we will not rule them. He turned back to face Vor. Your people will not be destroyed. Your homeworld will not be bombed. Your children will not be made into slaves. You taught the galaxy how to treat the defeated, Admiral. We will not teach the same lesson. We will teach a different one. Vor said nothing for a long moment. Then he asked, in a voice much smaller than before, and what lesson is that? That mercy is not weakness, Marcus said. That strength without wisdom is just loud noise before a fall, and that any species, no matter how small or how young, can change the shape of the galaxy if it is patient, clever, and willing to be underestimated. Marcus walked over to Vor and offered his hand. It was a strange gesture to the Kreshvar, but Vor seemed to understand it. Slowly, with great effort, he placed his huge, clawed hand against the small human palm. Admiral Vor, Marcus said, I formally accept your surrender. We will treat you and your people with dignity. You will return to your homeworld. You will help us negotiate a new arrangement between our peoples. The Dominion is over, but your species has a future. That part is up to you now. Later that day, aboard the bridge of the Iron Crown of 7 Suns, a broadcast went out across the galaxy. It was sent on every frequency, in dozens of languages. Every slave world received it. Every free world received it. Every corner of Kreshvar space received it. The broadcast showed Grand Admiral Vor, the Conqueror, sitting across from the small human ambassador. Vor spoke the surrender himself. His voice was steady, though his eyes were heavy. He announced the end of the Dominion. He announced the freedom of all subject worlds. He announced that the Kreshvar people would withdraw to their home systems and begin a new path. For the first time in 300 years, conquered worlds heard a voice that was not their master's. They heard their own languages spoken to them, not as commands, but as invitations. The invitation was simple. You are free now. Come join us. Together, we will build something new. Millions of beings across the galaxy wept that day. Some cried from joy, some from disbelief, some from memories of everything they had lost. And in every one of those places, one word was whispered in wonder: Earth. And on the quiet bridge of the captured flagship, Marcus Chen sat alone for a moment. He looked out at the stars. He thought of the long years of secret work. He thought of the friends who had died during the project, never seeing this day. He thought of his bees back home, waiting for him. He sighed softly. Then he got up and went back to work. There was still much to do. 6 months had passed since the day the Dominion fell. The galaxy was no longer the same place it had been. Old maps were useless now. Old fears had been replaced with new hopes. Old masters had become neighbors, and old slaves had become partners. The changes were visible everywhere. Former Kreshvar slave worlds now flew their own flags again, many of them seeing their true colors in the sky for the first time in generations. The Dominion's long system of forced labor and tribute had been dismantled piece by piece. In its place, a new body had been formed. It was called the Terran Allied Reconciliation Council. The name was chosen carefully. It was not called the Earth Alliance or the Human Federation. It was not named after any single species. The name simply honored the moment of its birth and the purpose it served. Its headquarters was not on Earth. It was built on a neutral world called Kashani Prime, which had been one of the first planets freed from Kreshvar rule. The council was led not by humans, but by a rotating committee of former slave species, with Earth serving as a neutral helper and mediator. On Earth itself, life had changed in ways that no one had expected. The secret was out now. Every human being knew about the aliens, the 40 years of quiet preparation, and the day the Dominion fell. There had been shock, of course. There had been questions and protests and long debates. But there had also been something new. For the first time in human history, every nation on Earth shared a single story. For the first time, humanity saw itself as one people on one small blue world. Alien visitors now walked the halls of the United Nations in New York. Trade ships from dozens of liberated worlds docked at new orbital stations built above Earth. Human children learned their first alien words in school. Scientists from Earth worked alongside scientists from species that, a year earlier, they had not even known existed. A new age had begun, and it had begun quietly, the way most real changes do. And yet, the man who had started it all was no longer at the center of things. Marcus Chen had gone home. His small house in Montana looked exactly as it had the day he left. The grass was a little longer. The paint on the front porch was a little more faded. But the bees still hummed in their hives. The garden still bloomed. Biscuit the dog still ran to greet him when he walked through the door. Marcus had turned down every major job offer, every award ceremony, every interview. He had said a polite thank you to the Secretary General and then asked to go home. He had earned his rest, and everyone agreed. So now he spent his days the way he had before. He checked on his bees. He worked in his garden. He read books on the porch in the evenings. Most people who drove past his house had no idea that the quiet man watering his tomatoes was the same man who had knelt a galactic empire in 3 seconds. One warm afternoon in late summer, Marcus was on his porch sipping iced tea when he saw something unusual. A small shuttle was landing in the field behind his house. It was a private shuttle, not a government one, and stepping out of it was a figure he did not expect. It was a Kreshvar, a young one, maybe in her early adult years by her species standards. She was smaller than Vor had been, and her scales were a lighter shade of green. She wore simple civilian clothing, not armor. She walked toward his porch carefully, as if she was not sure she was welcome. Marcus stood up. He smiled gently. "Good afternoon," he said. "You must be Keshra. Admiral Vor mentioned you in his last letter. Please come up. I have tea." The young Kreshvar blinked in surprise. "You were expecting me?" "Not today, exactly," Marcus said. "But I have been hoping someone like you would come. Please, sit. I made your tea already. It is the right formula for Kreshvar biology. Admiral Vor sent me the recipe." Keshra climbed the porch steps and sat down carefully in a wooden chair that creaked under her weight. Marcus poured her a tall glass of dark purple tea. She took it with her clawed hands and stared at it, then at him. "I do not understand you, Ambassador," she said finally. "Not as a person, not as a species." Marcus sat back down in his own chair. "That is fair. We are a confusing species. What would you like to understand?" Keshra set her tea down. Her voice trembled slightly. "I am from a new political party on the Kreshvar homeworld. We are called the Reformers. We want our people to find a new path. We want to make peace with the worlds we hurt. We want to help rebuild what we broke. But many of our elders do not agree. They call us traitors. They say we shame our ancestors." Marcus nodded slowly. "That is always the hardest part. Change. I came here because I need to ask you something," Keshra said. "And I need the answer to come from you, not from a council or a report. Ask me." Keshra took a deep breath. "Why did you spare us?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. He watched his bees flying over the lavender. He watched the afternoon light on the distant hills. Then, he looked at the young Kreshvar, sitting across from him. "Because the day we chose to destroy your people," he said softly, "would have been the day we became worth conquering." Keshra was still. "We did not win because we were stronger than you," Marcus continued. "We were not stronger. Your fleet was 1,000 times larger than ours. Your warriors would have torn our soldiers apart in any fair fight. We did not win because we were bigger, or braver, or tougher. We won because we were smarter, and we were patient, and we were willing to be underestimated for 40 years while we prepared." He took a sip of his iced tea. "But being smart is not enough to stay safe, Keshra. There will always be someone smarter, one day. The only way to truly keep yourself is to also be better. Not perfect, not innocent, but better. Kind when you can be, merciful when you have the chance, wise when others are loud." He smiled at her. "Your people taught the galaxy that strength is everything. We chose to teach something different. We chose to show that strength without wisdom is just noise. That is why we spared you. Not because we are good, but because we want to stay worth something." Keshra sat with his words for a long time. Her golden eyes, so similar to Vor's, grew wet at the edges. Her people did not often cry, but when they did, it meant something deep had moved inside them. "Thank you, Ambassador," she whispered. "Please," Marcus said. "Call me Marcus. I am retired now, and I think you and I are going to be friends." They sat together on the porch for a long time. They watched the bees and the light changing over the fields. Marcus told her about his dog, and his garden, and the names of the flowers. Keshra told him about her homeworld, and her family, and her hopes for the new party. They talked about things big and small. They did not talk about empires, or wars, or galactic politics. They talked like neighbors. That evening, after Keshra had left in her shuttle with promises to return, Marcus stood in his yard and looked up at the sky. The stars were coming out. Some of those stars had names he had memorized from Kreshvar maps long ago. Some belonged to species he had helped free. Some belonged to worlds he would never visit. Earth itself glowed softly in his mind, full now of voices and ships and friends who had come from far away. Decades later, historians would write about this period. They would call it the beginning of the Coalition Age. They would describe the 3-Second War as the shortest and most important conflict in galactic history. They would quote Marcus Chen's final speech to the galaxy, though he had never wanted to be famous. One line from that speech would be engraved above the doors of the Terran Allied Reconciliation Council building on Keshani Prime. Every visitor would read it as they entered. They came to demand surrender in 3 days. They received their answer in 3 seconds. And the galaxy has never been the same since. Back on Earth, in a small house in Montana, an old man sat on his porch with his dog at his feet. He watched the stars come out, one by one. He smiled quietly. Then he went inside, and he closed the door.